Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 270. Today on the podcast, Jen speaks with Bobby Davis Jr. about 5 steps to a life-changing software development job. This is very exciting for me. This is Jen's biggest interview since Alan Alda. I loved Bobby Davis Jr. back in the original Ocean's 11. And I remember from my childhood his big 1972 hit, The Candyman. I'm amazed he's not only still alive, but has reinvented himself as a software developer. What a class act. Yeah, baby.
You're listening to the Careers by Jen podcast. I'm your host, Jen Swanson. This is the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. Careers by Jen is a listener-sponsored podcast, and if you like the content, please consider supporting the show as a patron. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Head over to CareersbyJenn.com and click on Support to learn more. Happy International Podcast Day, September 30th. Okay, that was yesterday if you're listening to this on the first day that it launches. And I didn't do anything special for it, although we did go out for lunch, so that was nice. But it was yesterday, and I hope that you are enjoying all sorts of wonderful podcasts in your life, and that you have been, and that you are still discovering new ones. And thank you for listening to this one. Welcome to Careers by Jen. This show is recorded on the unceded and traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Matsqui, the Kwantlen, and the Katzie First Nation, and I found out I was missing a couple of them, the Semiahmoo and the Stolo nations as well. So grateful for the care and stewardship of the land down through the generations. Today is a guest interview day, and I am delighted to bring you this guest. And before I introduce him, I want you to know that if you want to see this episode, see the video of us talking and see what this guest looks like, you can do so if you come over to the Careers by Jen Patreon page, where monthly patrons get some extra goodies like behind the scenes stuff, some extra videos and articles, and from now on, I think there's one up there already, but from now on, video access to all the guest interviews, and there's even some merchandise, which is kind of exciting. So check that out if you're interested in being a supporter of this podcast. Bobby Davis Jr. is a tech entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience building successful software companies. Bobby founded his first company, which was the software consultancy Cortex in 2002 with just $500 in his account. That's brave. He has since grown it into a multi-million-dollar business. His second effort, Advanced Fraud Solutions, now runs in almost 1,000 financial institutions across 48 states in the United States. Inc. has labeled it one of the fastest growing private businesses in the country for 4 years running. Bobby also runs the Coder Foundry Bootcamp, which I was very excited about, where he has successfully placed hundreds of his software development students into high-paying jobs across the industry. He is the author of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, Breaking the Code, and we began our conversation by me asking him, is software development still in its heyday?
I think when you look at the amount of connected systems that we have, and when you look at things that are happening right now in COVID, and a lot of people moving to remote work increasingly across the world, you're going to see more software development, not less. So I look at it this way. So if you get a bill of lading from someone that's bringing a freight to your office or something like that, you still notice, with the exception of like UPS and FedEx, those systems are still analog. Yeah, I signed 3 cardboard paper yesterday. And so that tells me not every system has been softwareized or it's been automated yet. And so that just tells me that there's a lot of room for improvement. On top of that, when you see the advances in like AR, augmented reality, driverless cars, those things that are coming down in the next 5 years, those are going to take brand new software systems. And so I think not only since Heyday, I think we're poised for probably exponential growth over the next 10 years. Easy.
So lots of work.
Yes, lots of work for a lot of people.
I was listening to a national radio program the other night, and they were talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and they were talking about computers that were solving scientific issues and were able to take years of research away by figuring out the variables and coming up with the thing that the scientists would then take and move forward with without all the years and years and years of trial and error. And I thought, this is all pretty scary stuff.
Yeah. So there's a project out there called the GPT-3, which is an AI system that is kind of writing books. It's kind of writing some rudimentary software. And then you'll see a lot of articles out there, was that the death of software engineering? And I think that in software engineering in general, the thing that a computer can't do is be creative. A computer will never tell society that we would like to speak to each other in 180, 140 characters like Twitter did. Jack Dorsey invents that, and suddenly that's a thing we can't do without. And so a computer will never have the creativity that the human mind will. And so I think that it may automate certain segments, like we move from horses to cars. But this thing is, we're still going to need to write software, and there's going to be some human there that provides the creativity into that. It may get easier to do, or it may automate the easy parts, and then we just do the complex parts that require creativity. So I'm not really worried about AI as a software replacement yet.
Kind of like ATM machines and self-checkout, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
you still go to the bank for some things. Still do.
And some people prefer to talk to a human rather than deal with the machine. So, but so what are the benefits of looking for a job in this industry at this time in particular?
So the thing that we've coined here in the book, I wrote a book on this, Breaking the Code. I have a chapter on that software engineering is the economic mobilizer of our time, which means that there's really 3 types of economic mobility. Number one is it pays way above average. So the average software developer is going to make about $105,000 a year after 3 to 5 years in the industry. And that's a pretty nice salary for most people in the US. Now, those salaries may vary based on where you're at across the world, but in general, software engineers are paid way higher than other counterparts. And so that's one economic mobility. The second one, especially in the US, is what I'm going to call geographic mobility. Let's say that you're a high-paid engineer, or you're a high-paid electronics engineer. You can pretty much work in California, you can work in Texas, even here in North Carolina. There's some people that make chips here in North Carolina, but you can't work everywhere with those degrees. And so like with software engineering, every single business that's in the US has a software problem. They either buy it or they pay someone to build it. And if they're buying it, that means that someone else is paying someone to build it that you're using. And so you can go to any town in America and work as a software engineer. And I think that economic mobility should be very encouraging. Say, if you live in Topeka, Kansas, you don't have to live in San Francisco to make a living in doing this. The third one is this, what I would call job mobility. So a lot of us have had a job that was a bad job, or we had a bad boss, and we're like, I want to leave, and there's a country song, take this job and shove it. A lot of us think about that day where we could do a Jerry Maguire and just totally quit. With software, you're in such demand, that is a reality to you. And so like I had a guy that I was talking to last week that got laid off in 2018. He had a software job 5 days later. And for a lot of other professions, that's just not the case. It could take months or maybe even a year to find a new role. And because of the demand for it, you can work where you want, you get paid above average, and then you can work for the type of company that fits you. And I think that economic mobilizer is something that's not readily found in other kind of professions.
And what length of time does it take to train? Like, do you have to have an official category of training, or can somebody who's just really good at this and has had this as a passion get into it? What are the qualifications for this kind of work?
Right. So I think that is the misnomer. A lot of people think that you have to be like this kind of, dark science of computer programming that only a few people can know. And what I tell people this, not everyone can be a software developer, but way more can than you're probably thinking. And it's easier to break in than you think it is. Now, there's a lot of gatekeepers in our industry that try to discourage new people from coming in. A lot of times there's imposter syndrome where you look at someone that's a 20-year vet and you say, I can't possibly know that. And what I tell people all the time is you don't need to know what they know. You need to know enough to break in. And so I think that you can break in very easily without a college degree. We do it all the time here at the boot camp. And I think there's 3 ways to break in. You can go to college, you can go to a boot camp, or you can self-learn. And all 3 of those paths can lead to a job as a software developer.
And the stereotype, I don't know if it's the same where you are, but the stereotype is, 25-year-old men.
Right, exactly. And so it's, as I was talking to a student graduate coder founder, and she went on her first software job, and she called me on the phone. She says, this is so weird. Like everyone here is like my older uncle, and so and so she realized it right away that a lot of software engineers are a little bit older. There are younger people coming in, but it's not all what you see on like Silicon Valley or some of the TV shows where everyone's 22. There's a lot of people in there that's been doing this for a long time, and they have valuable input to give you as a younger programmer. And so I think it crosses all ranges of age, demographics, races, creeds, colors. All of those things happen inside of our industry.
I do corporate training in some of the work that I do. And I went into a tech company in Vancouver. I don't remember what it was called. But it was so beautiful inside. And there's a giant robot in the entryway. And the room that I got to present in had walls you could write all over. These glass walls. It was just so fun. Is it really fun in these workplaces?
What I tell people is it's fun if you like to solve problems. So especially early on in your career, you are going to spend what I call a lot of keyboard time. You're going to be coding, you got headphones on, you live in a cube usually. Now, some environments are really cool and people spend a lot of time on their environments, but most of the time you're coding and you get tickets sent your way. The time you get up is when you go to lunch in the bathroom, and there's a lot of work involved in that. And then there's some that are a little different where you have lots of meetings and things like that. But I tell people, if you like to jog, maybe software engineering is not for you. So if you long for those long hikes in the mountains, maybe this isn't for you. We spend a lot of time coding, but there is nothing like writing a piece of software and then going out into the wild and seeing someone use it. I can remember I wrote a piece of fraud software, and I was at a bank, and the bank teller used my software to see if the check was valid or not. And I know she wouldn't believe me, but in my mind, I was just telling her, I wrote that, right? But I didn't tell her that. I wanted to, but I didn't. And so I can imagine the same is true if you wrote music or you wrote a poem or you make movies. People go experience your stuff. It's really cool. And software gives just about anyone that kind of fulfillment in a job. So I like that aspect of it. Like I saw something and then someone else uses it.
Because you're actually creating something tangible,
right?
In a way. I mean, at first it's, dots and squiggles, but
right, yeah, exactly.
But then it's something that actually helps people do things better, easier, faster, more efficiently. Right. Or solves problems. I think I took a coding course once. It was fun.
Okay. It is fun.
It was fun. It was like, and it was only a few years ago. And I'm like, I'm 50. I'm going to try doing this now.
Right. Exactly.
But I had fun doing it. It was just, fooling around. It's like, oh, I made that happen.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. So you have 5 steps to
right.
To a life-changing software development job. And, for the people who are listening who maybe have never considered this, you've listed already some amazing benefits. What are some of the things people could do to get themselves into this and why is it life-changing? That's my opinion.
Yeah, so I think it's life-changing in a lot of ways. Number one, the pay is life-changing. Most people don't make 100K. That puts you in America, the top 90% of all earners in the U.S. So there's that. Then there's this personal fulfillment of making things that people use. A lot of times if you work in a factory or something like that, you may make boots or whatever, but you don't get that same fulfillment that you would if someone's using your software. I don't know why, but that's just seemingly the case. And I think you should break in because every company needs software engineers. And so you can work at a vast variety of companies, whether that could be a manufacturer, it could be classic social media companies that we see today, like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and all those big companies. But then there's that company down the street that you haven't heard of that needs an inventory control system, but they're a cool company to work for. They do cool things. And I think that gives you a lot of variety in what you want to do. And I think that's why people should pursue it. You know, it really can change your life in this whole economic environment that we live in.
All right. So do we have 5 steps or have you already mentioned them?
Oh, I've got 5 steps.
Okay.
So the first thing they need to do is just learn how to code. And so I think that the first step is you've got to pursue the skill. So this is a skill-based industry. And so you have to learn how to code. And I think there's 3 ways to do it. You can go to college, you can go to a boot camp like at Foundry, which I run, or you can go to learn on your own. I think that the thing that's beneficial to the boot camp route gives you a teacher, a coach, or a mentor, which I think everyone needs. And that you get access to at a boot camp. It's also 3 months at our boot camp. Some boot camps can be a bit longer, so your time to market's a lot quicker. The second thing that you need to do after that is if whatever you choose to do, whether you go to university, you go to a college, you go to whatever, you need to have a portfolio of projects that you can present. So your learning journey should lead to projects that you can show an employer. And so if you just did the learning route on your own online, then make sure that you're building projects and then you show those projects to during an interview. The third step that we talk about is take control of the interview. So let's say that you went through your journey, you built your projects, and now you're actually going to interview people. And I think that what you need to do is take control of the interview. So here's the classic interview that happens. You walk into a room that asks you a question and you sit down and you answer it. What I tell every student to do is that is your opportunity to demo something and not just answer it like an academic setting like you do in most interview situations. So they ask you like, hey, what is C#? You can tell them what C# is, or you can show them a piece of software written in C#. And that's the power of building that portfolio that you can do that. And then finally, I think one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is not be grumpy coder guy. And grumpy coder guy is the person that doesn't share information. They are consumers and they don't really share information. I think even in your learning journey, when you're a rookie on the job, we call them noobs, you should share the things that you know, be open with what you know, and help others along the way. And I think all of those things together can build a solid, nice career in life because you help others, but you're also committed to your craft and learning.
So you can do this in as little as 3 months from beginning to end if you've never done anything before?
Yeah, and we call them 0 to hero. And yes, and so like we take those people that think a certain way. So like we test them coming into our boot camp, and we test them and we see if they think a certain way. What we're looking for are these native, natural problem solvers that apply an abstract to concrete issues. So let's say I teach you how to change a tire on a car. It's got 4 bolts and it turns. A programmer would look at a propeller on a plane and go, I think I could put that on. A non-programmer would think those are 2 separate problems. And we're looking for that person that can take what I know and take that abstract what I know and apply it to a new concrete problem that seemingly is different, but it's very similar. And they see the similarities, not the differences. And I think that's all we're looking for. And I think that both thinkers are exceptionally valid in our world. I just think that there's half of the population will look at that and be able to, and that means that we can teach you coding in a very fast minute because you just will naturally understand or see patterns that others don't.
So there is an inherent creativity to this work.
Yes, I think so. Now, what that means is, let's say that you took our test and you did miserable on it, and you're not like naturally like that. It doesn't mean you can't learn it. What we would suggest then is like, well, maybe the 4-year college route is better for you. And so maybe you need to develop that way or do more development. But for the ones that want to go through a boot camp, there's a lot of people that just walk around that have this natural thinking ability that could learn how to code. They just don't know they do. They have it.
Huh. That's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. And our test is, you can go to coderfoundry.com/develop/quiz, and you can take the quiz. It's free. It's fun. And then if you score above like an 85 on it, you should consider coding as a career, especially if you're looking for something new, you're looking for different changes. And if you're satisfied with what you're doing, stay with what you're doing. And you can just know, like, I could code if I wanted to, but like, I like writing books, or I like this, or I like doing what I'm doing. So.
And do some people work at this part-time?
Yeah, you can work at it part-time. I think that in the early years, having a full-time job is beneficial to your learning. So like, you learn enough to get the job, but then having a 40-hour work week helps you really go to that expert level. And then after that, I've seen a lot of people move into freelancing after they've kind of built their skills up, and they work 20, 25 hours a week, and they can make a nice living doing that. Usually the really good people at this can't work part-time because they get too much work thrown their way. They try to, but they end up doing more than they want. But it's definitely possible to work part-time as a freelancer.
And you don't think that there's a ceiling or a at capacity level yet for this kind of work?
I don't think so. Like, put it this way, if you are a great communicator plus a coder, which means a great communicator is someone who could walk on a stage and talk to 500 people and tell them something very technical in a way they can understand, they'll practically pay you anything to do that. And you can see those in Microsoft. And, when Steve Jobs walks out and tells everyone they want an iPhone, he was an engineer at heart, but like, he just showed you this phone and you're like, I have to go get that. Those type of people can be paid next to anything. And I don't think we're anywhere close to capacity. I looked this morning, and for just C# jobs, there's 26,000 open positions in the US this morning. So that just tells you, and we're in the middle of a downturn where 2 of our largest states are basically closed down, California and New York. And that just tells you the amount of need and the amount of type of opportunities out there for people.
So Bobby, how did you come to be doing this, this thing that you're obviously so passionate about? What was your journey like?
Oh, so it's pretty amazing. I went to college, and I studied software engineering in the late 80s. But then I went through an upheaval in life, as we all do when we're in college. And I moved from that college to a different college. Well, none of my credits transferred. This was back in the day, in the 90s, where colleges just want you to start over. So I started over with a risk management insurance degree. And my dad always jokes, I went to college for 8 years and got 1 degree. So, but which is kind of true, but like, and so I ended up at the Department of Insurance doing receiverships. And someone asked me, could I write this system on this old system they were trying to convert? And I did. I just knew how to do it. I don't know why, I just did. And from there, I got hired at a software company, and the rest is history. And one of my tenets in life is this opportunity to be a coder has afforded me so much opportunity that I decided to start Coder Foundry because I felt like I could start a company that truly helped people break into the industry. And I can know that Coder Foundry has helped a lot of people that normally would have stayed a bartender or stayed in a minimum wage job, but we moved them into a coding job, and they're making a lot more money now. So I like the fact that I can build a company that we can help people. And that's kind of where I'm at in my current life right now, is I want to collect a lot of people that can say, hey, Bobby helped me out, and not for my own benefit, but that I can like leave a legacy with a lot of people that you try to help others more than you consume, I think is a good way in life.
And that seems to light you up. I can because I can see you right now.
Right. Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
I try to cycle a little bit, and then working on my health as we get older. I'm in my 50s now, so I'm trying to like work on that a little bit. And then I also have a son in film school, and so we work on short films together. So I do a lot of that on the weekends and play with cameras and make movies and things like that. So, and then I also have a YouTube channel which consumes a lot of my free time. So that's kind of what I do right now. So it's kind of fun though.
Sounds like you're a busy guy.
Yeah, try to.
Can you tell us about your book?
Yeah, so the book is called Breaking the Code, 5 Steps to a Software Job. And really the book is not a learn to code book. It's more about how do I market myself as a developer, especially someone that's just finished their learning process. So if you're straight out of college, or you're straight out of a boot camp, or you're straight out of, you've been doing online learning for a year, this book is for you. If you want to know, like, what's the job like, I think the first couple of chapters is definitely for you. If you want to expose yourself to, hey, what is coding? What is all this about? This book is for you. So like, a lot of people think that I can't read that because I'm not technical. I promise you that it's a non-technical book, but it opens your eyes to not only should I learn to code, but how do I actually get a job after I've learned? And I think those 5 steps are essential to everybody.
That's great. So where can people find you if they want to know more about you?
Yeah, they can go to CoderFoundry.com. Obviously, that's our boot camp. You also can find me on YouTube. Just search up CoderFoundry YouTube channel. You can look at the book on any of the major book selling platforms, Amazon, obviously Barnes and Nobles, things like that. It's in ebook, it's in paperback, it's in audiobooks, it's everywhere. So like we're excited to be able to tell people this valuable information. So you can find me on that, and you can find me on Twitter as well. Just look up Bobby Davis Jr. on Twitter. So.
All right. And I'm going to just spell Coder Foundry, CoderFoundry.com.
Yep. Coder Foundry.
Just in case. And that's great. So do you have one last piece of advice for the Careers by Jenn listener?
Well, I think if you're out there and you're looking for a change, and you don't know what you can do, maybe your current job you feel stuck in, or you feel unmotivated in your current job, you just want to look into something. What I want to do is encourage you that coding may be that hidden job that you didn't know you could do. And you can start by taking our quiz or taking your own class online free. You don't have to come to our boot camp, but I just encourage you to maybe take a weekend and see if that's something that you want to do, and then maybe pursue it as a lifetime profession.
That's great. That's very exciting. If I was, 20 years younger, hey. That's great. Well, thanks for taking the time to be on the show today. And I think you probably have lit that fire under a number of people today. So thank you for that.
Cool.
You've been listening to Careers by Jenn with Jenn Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. If every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.